welcome to another episode of Beer for Breakfast ABV. I am Danielle from the Moog Show on 91X. As always, I have my beer drinking partner in crime with me, Paul Segura, brewmaster from Karl Strauss. And today is really, really exciting. We're celebrating Hess Fest 9. Mike Hess Brewing Company, Hess Fest number 9, and I am surrounded by a really amazing people. We have Jason, Director of Brewing Operations. We have Paul, Lead Brewer. We have Matt, in charge of events. And we have the man himself, Mike Hess. Thank you guys so much for making the trip to 91X. We're super stoked out for Hess Fest. Yeah. When I found out that it was Hess Fest 9.
Where does the time go? Holy crap.
It just keeps going to the future.
Dude, and not even just like Hess Fest 9, but you guys are doing so much. Obviously, we've got the original location in Miramar.
Yep.
We've got the North Park location right there. Yep. You guys have the OB one that you opened 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
And you just opened up Imperial Beach. So you've been really, really busy.
We also opened up Walnut Creek in the fall of last year.
Walnut, see, I knew I'd be missing something.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are constantly doing things, and that is so, so amazing. And also, not to get too far ahead of it, but for the past year, have been following your guys' journey with your daughter, Keely, who's going through her whole, pediatric cancer treatment, which we'll totally get into. But I just
cheers to her right now,
I do too. No,
that is her strength, her fortitude, her spirit.
Indeed,
man.
I was actually, when I saw your brother for your guys' St. Baldrick's event that you did a few weeks ago, I was telling him, I was like, when I was a teenager, I had such a bad attitude, and there was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Keely has such a positive attitude, no matter what's going on, that just so amazed.
She's a badass.
It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. She's almost done with treatments, and we'll get on the other side of this and get back to a new normal.
That is amazing. So cheers to you,
yes.
Keely. So we did a pre-funk with the White Peach Berliner Weisse.
Still doing the pre-funk.
This comes in at a 3.8%. Tell me a little bit more about this. Who wants to take it?
It's pretty traditional Berliner Weisse, 50-50 grain bill of two-row malt and white wheat. Mm-hmm. And very small hop addition, or else you don't get to call it beer. This one was soured with a isolated strain of lactobacillus. We used the Delbruck.
Delbruckii.
Nice. Yeah,
okay.
It's very, very clean lactic
strain.
strain.
So Delbruckii has that stone fruit flavor already, and then you guys just brought it up like a bunch of notches.
Yeah, that with the 001, it just takes it a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Good job.
This one afterwards, we introduced some white peach puree into it and really sold those flavors further.
It's delicious.
It is. So the next beer that we're going to get into, the my other Weisse, the Berliner Weisse, it's similar, but it's raspberry, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same base, but with a different fruit?
Exactly.
All right. Jason, can you open this up for me? And let's give this a little tasty boo. So as I'm pouring this, Mike, can you just kind of give us a rundown as to what to expect on Saturday for Hess Fest?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, what we're kind of doing is a little preview of the VIP portion for Hess Fest, because the VIP portion, what we do is we take Berliner Weisse, My Other Weisse, and we ask all the participating breweries who come to the festival, and there's 25 of them this year, to help us put their own spin on My Other Weisse. And so inside the tasting room at North Park, we'll have 20 to 30 variants of My Other Weisse, each one of them tuned up by one of the participating breweries. So Strauss and AleSmith and Society, Society, they don't really like to play along with these type of things, but they are going to be at the festival. South Park Brewing Company, North Park Brewing Company, all kinds of other guys are going to do their own variants on it. And this beer, we've won multiple awards. I know Jason can probably talk to the awards, but it's a great base beer. And then when these guys do their incredible variations on it, it's really a lot of fun for the VIP festival.
If you don't have a VIP ticket for this,
what are you doing with your life?
No, but FOMO was a real thing. FOMO was a real thing, because you'll be in the general admission, and you'll see people go into the VIP area where that's the only place you can get these beers. You're like, you can't even just let me in. It's like, no, you're not VIP. I'm sorry. So don't make that mistake.
So you don't get to drink award-winning beer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so this beer has won awards. The Peach Berliner Weisse has already won awards. So before you get talking about this one, maybe, I don't know, pimp yourself out here, man. Like
Come on, down, Jason. Don't be so. Don't be
yourself on
humble.
the
Well, it all started with brewing this beer for another client in Arizona, and Greg Hess was like, he went out to the event, they were doing this thing, and everybody was like, this is like so incredibly amazing, we gotta do it again. So we did about 30 barrels of it. It hit the market, and then we started entering in different competitions, and every single year it's hit something. And it's just been a fantastic beer to put out that's really unique.
It's been very consistent.
Yeah, very
It's
consistent.
been
It's
awesome.
It's my favorite one to brew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
No, this is a really, really good beer because it's not a lot of times fruited beers are very sweet.
Yeah.
And there's nothing sweet about this. You get that raspberry taste behind it, but you're not like, oh, like this tastes like a fruit beer.
Right.
dry.
Doesn't taste like jam or
It's
jelly.
definitely
It's
It's
nice.
not right. Yeah, it tastes like beer first,
right.
and then it finishes with that raspberry, and the raspberry has the whole fruit flavor. It's got the tartness and the sweetness, but just enough sweetness to kind of balance out the dryness of the beer. I think
For sure.
this is
So,
nice.
Jason, how long have you been brewing for Hess?
6 years?
So 6 years with Mike. Paul, how long have you been there?
5 years now, and I think 5 years, 1 month.
Okay, so like, and obviously, Mike, you from the get-go.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really love about what you guys do is you guys choose to go with your own style. Like you go with like here are the loose guidelines, but you don't rigid yourself in this is what needs to be in this kind of style.
Yeah.
And personally, as a beer drinker, I appreciate that because it's very refreshing. It's very different of like, oh, if I'm going to go try a Mike Hess beer, I'm not expecting, these rigid guidelines as if you were entering into a beer competition.
Right.
You guys don't really follow the rules.
I think that's true for a lot of beers, but I also think there are some beers that we do where they're outside of the style guidelines, but we can still win with them. Like when we took World Beer Cup with Kolsch. Kolsch is higher ABV than it should be for the style,
Yes.
but we won gold. So
Okay, we just had this conversation about Kolsch when naming beers,
Yeah.
because for a while there, people did not know what a Kolsch was, and so it was being masqueraded as like a pilsner or a
Blonde.
lager
Yeah.
or a
Oh my God.
blonde
Yeah.
or something
Right.
like that.
we've called ours Kolsch from 2010 when we started the brewery.
Okay, so it
I
never
applaud you
really
for that.
it never really hindered you guys or did
No,
it?
it didn't. And part of my thing when I started in 2010, and there was far fewer breweries and far less beer knowledge out there. We had this recipe sheet, or not a recipe sheet, a guide sheet to the beers. When people would come into our brewery in Miramar, we'd have all the beers listed, and we would describe what is a Vienna, what is a Kolsch, what is a whatever, and there was a little like even IPA. People like IPA, right? I've seen people
IPA.
order IPA,
Oh,
right?
gosh.
So we were very much on the educational side of it, and maybe that we were a little bit too geeky because we would put down their like original gravity, and we would put down international bittering units and things like that, so that if there were people who came in who knew brewing, they would get it, and if they didn't know brewing, they would probably disregard it, but at least they could read all the words and how to describe a beer and what a Kolsch was and that type of
Well,
thing.
and I would say at that point you were probably ahead of the game because now that's what we're looking for. That's all of that knowledge. What is the IBU? What is the ABV? What is the grain build? What are the hops in them?
Right.
One of my favorite things now is when I see the back of a can and I can see exactly what the hop varietal is.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what it is, how do you know what you like? How do you know what you like?
Right, and we've done things like on our packaging, for instance, like if you see on here where we've got a spectrum that's got light to dark and hoppy to malty. We've got so people know what they're getting themselves into right at the beginning. And we put that stuff right on the forefront of the packaging. It's on the cans as well.
And
again,
I think that those are
same
the
type of
things
thing
that
right
you're
there.
doing, when you're just trying to make the beer converts of, I only know these 3 beer companies because these are the 3 beer companies that I grew up with and this is all I know. And when you make craft beer more accessible to the people who may be intimidated by it, by putting all of that on the can, it doesn't seem that intimidating anymore.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, we just want consumers to be informed and know what they're getting into, and the more they know, the better they can make good selections at the supermarket or out in town when they're at their favorite bar and looking for something to drink.
And the other thing is, we touched a lot on sort of their, I guess, pedestrian end of the spectrum of beers that you guys do. You guys do beers across the spectrum. And the Vienna.
Umbrix is one of my favorites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Umbrix is such a good beer. And it's, you know, it's one of those ones that, you know, we see the Solus a lot out there and people know about that, but Umbrix is one of my favorite beers in this entire city.
Do you know
You
this?
just touched all of our hearts.
Oh, God! Please don't ever do anything with Umbrix because it's such a solid beer. It's my
It is.
go-to every time I come in.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So has the philosophy sort of been we're going to brew beers that we like to drink, and we hope, other people are going to like them too? I mean, there's a solid possibility.
It definitely started there. We're not as militant on that as we used to be when it was just me. You know, when it was just me and Mike Skubik as the bartender, you know, it was beers that I like to make. To a certain extent, though, because we are a production, we're in distribution, we try and make beers that more and more people like. But it's always beers that somebody on the team is really passionate about.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not just pandering in any way.
Right.
But, you know, I think we've always appreciated that we have made great beers across all the different styles. Like you mentioned Umbrix. Umbrix, I think, is our award-winningest.
Our best.
Yeah.
Right?
It's one
And
of
we,
those
but we won World Beer Cup for a double IPA with Habitus and Kolsch on the
Oh,
other end
God,
of the spectrum.
Habitus.
Right, so
Another
it's just
phenomenal
kind of
beer.
We just
You
got
got
another
this-
award at the fair this weekend.
It's a pretty broad range of beers that we've won awards for. It's been really awesome in that way. Yeah. So what is this here? Oh, Wizard.
Oh, yes, Wizard of Haze. So technically, we have had Wizard of Haze on Beer for Breakfast, who did the San Diego International Beer Festival. But I want to be able to dive into this deeper with you guys
Good.
because as knowledgeable as Tyson is, and I love Tyson,
Who?
Tyson's
I
amazing.
know. Never heard of him. Never heard of Tyson Blake. But I kind of want to get where you guys were coming with this because this is your third year doing the quote-unquote official fair beer, right?
Semi-official.
Semi-official.
That's right.
Semi-official. You know, there was
got
a
one.
year.
There's a story there. I'll
My-
take this one. I'll
okay.
take the short. Matt, you can have that one there.
Oh, cheers.
So there was a year that I remember there being a blood orange. There was
Yes.
a year that it was
Into the Sunset.
tangerine,
Tangerine Affair.
which both were great beers.
Yeah.
The thing that I was stoked about this was it was very different than the last 2 years. You still had a very approachable beer for the general beer drinker, but had very different flavors. Where was this coming from? Who do I direct this at?
This is kind of all of our baby.
Okay.
When we wanted to make a beer that was like super refreshing, and you can have 10 or 20 of them at the fair for $14 a piece.
10 or 20.
Yeah. So we wanted to make a little hazy, but super bright, vibrant, juicy, tropical, but easy. Low IBUs, low bitterness, just something you could put back and not even think about it. But it had this big grass aroma and big hop aroma and just juice, you know, and hazy and stay hazy, right? Look at that.
It is that.
Still hazy.
But it's not a yeast bomb.
No.
This has a really, like a perfect amount of haziness for it. And I don't want yeast bombs.
Yeah.
Got to refine them.
Yeah, they're refined and
And we avoided doing the hazies for a while. I don't know if you guys recognize that or, you know, pointed that out some way. But I remember when we did the glitter beer, the guy with Tangerine Affair, we did a little bit of glitter in the tasting rooms, and a guy calls me and was like, "You guys aren't even doing hazies, you're doing glitter beers? What's going on over there?" Right?
just having fun.
And
That's it.
our theory was that we
That one
wanted to
spoke to
do. My thing was, you know, talking with Jason, and let's see where the hazy world kind of settles out, because there was so many variants at the beginning, and some of them were yeast bombs, and some of them were not, and some were really well made, and some were not. And then the BA came in with the style guidelines and all that stuff, and we wanted to make something once we had some good examples of what was out there in the marketplace. And so that's when we came up with Hop Cloud, which we did for our anniversary beer last year. And since then we've done several of them, right? We've done
Cluster flock.
Yeah, Cluster Flock. That was a long one. Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So anyway, with Wizard, we wanted to do something that was in that session lane that again, I don't know about 10 or 20, but you know.
I
good one.
appreciate what hazies have done, because for me personally, and I will always think of your amazing wife Linda with this. It was years ago. I was chatting with her, and I told her, I was like, I wish I loved IPAs. I wish I liked IPAs. I just don't. This is such a hop IPA town, and I liked Belgians. That was how I got into craft beer, was through Belgians. And it was so few and far between that you found like a really good Belgian. And I remember talking to Linda and being like, I wish I liked IPAs so much. And she put my mind at such ease when she was like, you know what, like, it's gonna take time. She's like, you'll get there. She's like, it will take time. You know, she's like, women, you know, their palates are a little bit more sensitive than men's, and it will take you longer to get to that IPA palate. but you'll get there. At the time, I kind of wish that hazies were around because
Yeah.
I think that this is the perfect bridge for anybody who wants to get into IPAs, but the bitterness is just too much.
Right.
Like my mom, we were out and she was like, she's like, what do you think of the hazy IPA here? I'm like, well, do you want to try it? And that never would have been something that came out of her mouth beforehand.
Right.
So I think that there is a specific place for this beer, and I think that it's bridging that gap and kind of finding a common ground between beer drinkers and IPA drinkers and lighter beer drinkers. And
I agree, yeah, and we see that in our numbers, like in our, in our 5 tasting rooms, we see where the beers sell and which ones are selling. I'm sure you guys have probably seen it at your Strauss locations, right, with boat shoes and
Yeah, absolutely.
and
yeah.
You put on a good quality hazy.
Right,
and-
so some brewers are like, yeah, we're not going to react to the market. We're not going to, we're going to let whatever, man. Sometimes they get on this thing where, whatever. But you brew one and it flies and you kind of go, wow, you got to brew another one.
Right.
Then you brew another one and pretty soon it's on forever.
Right.
It's here to stay. Sorry, man. It's here to stay. I don't know what everybody's thing is.
Yeah.
The
wizard
flavors are
granted your
good.
wish.
Like, I think you're going to have to get over it, whatever your hang up is on it, because it's here to stay, man.
It seems to me to have longer legs than some of the other IPA type
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly a bit
Brute
bigger.
was maybe on the scene for a
Because
short
that's done,
while.
right? More or
That was a
less.
blip.
There's a few of them out there. I don't know if anybody's really clommed onto the whole milkshake thing or whatever, right?
Yeah, I
Thank
don't
God. But hazy's, I don't know.
And you know what? Say what you want about hazies. It's bringing people to craft beer because it's
Helps a
got
lot.
all of the flavors people enjoy, but about hops, but not necessarily the bitterness.
And is that not kind of like the end game? Is just to make sure that beer drinkers are aware that there are more options out there, and there isn't. If you say like I don't like beer, it's like no, we just haven't found the right beer
I
for
say
you.
that all the time to people.
We have just not
Yeah.
found the right beer for you.
Yeah.
You love beer. We need to figure out which one it is.
Right.
So just to kind of like wrap this up, Hess Fest.
Yeah.
This Saturday. Where do we get our tickets? What do we got to do?
Okay, so Hess Fest, tickets.mikehessbrewing.com. There's 2 sessions. Well, there's the VIP session. The VIP session includes obviously the general admission. The general admission, you get 25 breweries. We got 9 food vendors. You get unlimited samples. You get 4 samples off of any of the 9 food people. There's a free cornhole tournament. There's a concert with 4 bands. Music starts at noon.
One of them's a Grammy-nominated band.
Yep, Sully and the Soul
Sully.
Just playing. I mean, they play Belly Up and all they played at Kaboo last year.
Yep.
You guys have Aviator Stash, one of 91X's local breaks that we had
Yeah.
last year, so they are part of the family here at 91X.
Yeah, you get a free glass. The glass comes with $5 fills Monday through Thursday at the brewery for the rest of the year. And we just added, with the fair, you get 2 free tickets for each Hess Fest ticket to the San Diego County Fair.
What are you doing?
There it is.
So much comes with your ticketed admission. So if you're not at Hess Fest on Saturday, I don't even feel bad for you when you're like, oh, I didn't get my cool glass, I didn't get my beer, I didn't get my fair tickets, I didn't get to see live music. Like, I'm not going to feel bad for you because we are telling you right now that you need to be at Hess Fest on Saturday.
Plus, the proceeds go to really awesome stuff, man. Navy SEALs.
Pavlov Foundation right
Pavlov
here.
Found-
So pediatric cancer research.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really, and I think that's one of our biggest things. This year's been really a big philanthropic year for us. We've always been involved in that. This year a little more so, obviously, because of the cancer in our own family. But we found 2 great foundations that we want to work with. I'm a former Navy guy, so Navy SEAL Foundation, and there's a lot of team guys. We're in IB. That's a big team area, of course.
Yeah.
Pavlov is, we did St. Baldrick's. That's why,
Right.
here back on Memorial Day, this Hess Fest is for Pavlov Foundation. They do seed money for researchers who just need to get into a lab and get some data so they can get a concept proof so they can get the $1 million grant. So Pavlov does like $50,000 grants. They're like cutting edge research in pediatric cancer research, and that's what we're getting the money to.
Mike, I will tell you, when you came on the Moog Show to talk about the Memorial Weekend fundraiser you did for St. Baldrick's, when you told me that less than 4% of funding goes to pediatric cancer, that blew my mind so much, because without sounding cheesy, like, they are our future. Like, why are we not putting more into making sure that these kids have quality of life after they've beaten this thing?
Right. No, it's for sure. It's definitely underfunded. And organizations like Pavlov and St. Baldrick's and these others that we're working with throughout the rest of this year and probably into the future, I mean, it's given us like this new really cool, thing to to use the brewery for. I mean, I think that breweries can really be a bigger impact on these types of things rather than just making great beer and providing great jobs. We can have a real positive impact on organizations about foundations and things that we're all passionate about.
And just real quick, how much money did you guys raise at the St. Baldrick's event?
St. Baldrick's were just a hair under $66,000.
I like the pun.
Yeah, thank you.
That is amazing.
66 grand is
Just
pretty
under
good.
66 grand. That is phenomenal. And that is people like you in the community coming together with a community business who is run and operated by the people you're seeing right now. Like, every time you go to one of these breweries, that money's not going into some random CEO's pocket. This is going to the community. You see these people in the brewery every day. So just remember that your dollars go towards something very, very special when you support local breweries and what you guys are doing.
How many breweries can we point to that are doing stuff like this, right? Tom Nickel with the PTSD thing, Surf Rider, like everybody
many.
is doing something in their community. Most breweries are.
Yeah.
It's
Support your independent
Very,
local
very
brewery.
special. Mike, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on Beer for Breakfast.
Happy to be
Matt, Paul, Jason, it was so great to see you guys. Thanks for making the trip over here to 91X. Remember, this weekend, Hess Fest 9. Hess Fest 9. You don't want to miss it because I know you're going to be walking down University and be like, what's going on over there? What? Oh, Hess Fest. Just get your tickets now because I'm going to be really bummed out, but not really when I see on social media that you weren't able to get into Hess Fest. Remember, on Friday, Paul will come on to the Moog Show and tell Moog and myself what we should be drinking and doing this weekend, and it's going to be all centered around Hess.
There might be some Solis in there.
Just saying, you don't want to miss it. And thank you for watching another episode of Beer for Breakfast ABV, and cheers to independently owned craft beer in San Diego.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Good job, fellas. Keep on keeping on, man.
Cheers to you, Keely.
91X.